Hey everyone, Dan here from the Geekcast Radio, trying another one of these classic Facebook live chats. It just came recently from the Black Panther. I know one of the trillions of the people that's seen it. Just saw it today. I know late to the party, but I want to give my thoughts on it. Give some overall general takes. I'll stay spoiler free for the most part. Maybe at the end, a few spoilers here and there. But it's a huge movie. People are talking about it. Wanted to share my idea, what I thought, and let us know what you thought as well. Comments below or what have you. So overall, I really dug it. I thought it was quite good. I don't think I've watched a movie that has had this much hype in some time, maybe since Force Awakens, and this may even surpass that with everything that's included. But it lived up to that for the most part. I love what Ryan Coogler did as a director. A big fan of him from Fruitvale Station, Creed 2. Both of those movies I had high regards for, and I think with this he also made it his own. And kind of walking away from it, the first thing that really stood out was just how much it was a movie about community, a movie about this nation of Wakanda, and how it represented that in so many different ways. First and foremost, this is by far the best Marvel film when it comes to casting and overall performances and characters. Like every major character, not just T'Challa, but every major character had a purpose, had personality, had some sort of arc, but also the relationships within those characters was always unique. And it felt like everyone had a story. And it kind of, when you were dropped into this world, and a world full of history, and also there was clearly things that happened within this community prior than we got there. Like there are certain relationships that were developed that you kind of had to catch up with, because that was a clever idea. So if there was a relationship or a romantic angle, everything wasn't about that moment in time. It was things happened beforehand, and it kind of hinted it, gave you some hints over what occurred. But it made it, you didn't have to have another origin story or what have you, or you didn't have to try to do everything in one movie. And by doing that, you gave it a lot of room to really soak into this world and really build a lot of these characters. By far, maybe Marvel's best villain. First, Michael B. Jordan's, his performance was great, and I love that he was a character that was not trying to necessarily. His motivations were both personal, but also had some ginormous stakes behind them, and like you kind of felt where he's coming from. He wasn't completely evil. He was evil. He did evil things, but his motivations at least felt earned, and he got to the point where he did, based upon the story that was there, and you kind of understood things from his perspective. And the performance was just great. He had some comedic bits, but never out of character. He felt like a legitimate threat, and this may be what I loved about it too was it was one of the few comic book films in general where its characters were wrong, not just its villains, but some of its heroes, and would fail. I mean, obviously, like someone like Tony Stark has failed because of his problems, especially in Iron Man 2, but this was more of a global failure. And T'Challa had a kind of a journey unlike anyone else, and had to go up against things, not just this personal battle with Killmonger or the overall just start that he provided, but the tradition that he is trying to understand and figure out where exactly does he fit, and where does he see Wakanda fitting in the future. So I thought there was just so much going on for a Marvel film. I know people were saying it doesn't feel like a Marvel film. When I say for the most part, I agree with it. For the action-wise, there weren't a huge amount of standout moments, but I kind of liked that because the action was probably the thing I enjoyed least about it. I love the characters first and foremost. Loved that it did really kind of make Wakanda into something that was unlike anything else we've seen. Special effects wise, it had some bits here and there. When specifically, I'll just say the rhinos didn't look all that convincing, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But what it needed to, it worked. I love the technology that they used for Black Panther, and like his overall from the opening sequence where he's almost feels like a predator, and then at the end when it has almost like Iron Man tech. Was an interesting progression, and just Wakanda itself, all the technology they had, especially the opening prologue, and how they used it to kind of build the history and the technology they used, the CGI, was really cool. It had a really cool feel to it, and I love how it continued that motif throughout the entire movie. Like I love, and any time we kind of went into a new throne room, there was a few like just like I just wanted to take a picture of it because like there was so much production design. Like the actual real life production design was phenomenal. I did have some qualms here and there, nothing specifically that really bugged me or really took it down a huge notch, but I did think that there are probably some things I could do to improve. But by far, I would say, you know, where does it fall within the realm of Marvel's best movies? It's up there. It's probably the top 5 for me. Winter Soldier is still probably my favorite, mostly because I love that sword. Captain America is my favorite superhero, so it's more of a subjective choice than anything. But I think objectively, it does some things better than any of the Marvel films. Maybe the one key is that the action per se isn't onto that level. There are some bits here and there, but what I loved about the ending too, and when I found it is where, without giving anything away, the final conclusion, the final battle, even characters that weren't main characters, like I cared so much about Wakanda and so much about this world that like even if someone I didn't know was like a side character, I just felt like there was tragedy there, and seeing what was happening in the end. Even like, you know, no-name characters, there was just something about it, just because you were just seeing this world that you've grown to love and respect, and seeing how it's Killmonger is coming in and messing things up, unfortunately. Also in Claw, how could I not forget? Obviously Andy Serkis, and Claw's a dumb character. Like if you read the comics, he's pretty often really dumb. He's, you know, living sound. It's very much. You know, he worked for the time. He being introduced, you know, in the early stages. I think he was in Fantastic Four. I'm not sure, but he was, you know, very much a Silver Age character who hasn't really been used that much. Hasn't really been updated. Overall, he's still kind of just the same character. And I think Andy Serkis, really, only thing that he had in common with that character was that he had the arm piece of it, which I'm glad they didn't really try to explain it or really spend a lot of time of making it in the Claw story. Like that, his origin, this was much more interesting, but he was just ridiculously hilarious. Like he was unhinged in the best ways. Like, you know, he's this character we saw in Age of Ultron. He was fine, but I don't know if Coogler just gave him direction of like, let's make this character just like legitimately insane in the best ways possible. But he did, and it worked well. But I did want to touch on a few spoilers. So if you're watching this and you don't want to be spoiled, little spoilers here and there, just regarding, you know, some of the more specific things that I didn't want to get into. So you've been warned. If you're watching this, make sure you've seen it. Don't let me spoil it for you. But if I'm just talking about like in general, like the one aspect that didn't work was really just one small moment, and which tells you how well it was made, and that was actually between. I'm trying to make sure that I get the character's name correctly. Okayo and Wakabi, who are two of the major characters in the final. They're leading the two different tribes that are kind of warring with each other, and you know they also are married. And I honestly forgot about that piece of it. And I think like just one more scene, I think would have made. They have this major square off in the end where he's riding the rhino and she's standing there, and I think if like it was more established their relationship a little bit, like that piece would have worked so much better than it did. It worked well enough. It had a comedic bit here and there, but I do think that like that was the one bit that was missing. But her character overall, that was awesome. Like there's so many like people that stole the show, but I think that's unfortunate. Like that's doing a discredit to Chadwick Boseman, who I thought he was so good as T'Challa. I remember watching Serenity back in the day and seeing Chiwetel Ejiofor in that film and thinking like he'd be the perfect Black Panther, and I still think he would work well with that character. Of course, now he's with Doctor Strange, but Chadwick Boseman is just wow. Like the guy is, you know, he's played Jackie Robinson, he's played Thurgood Marshall, and Black Panther. Obviously, different important characters for different reasons, but I was legitimately surprised. And when he loses that final that square off with Killmonger, like I was wow. They actually allowed him to fail in a way that like there wasn't any excuse. Like he legitimately was just bested, and I think that's like something I was not expected. I heard that one of the biggest complaints that it's a very predictable film, and Marvel films are generally predictable, so a lot of these are. guess what? James Bond's coming out. He's probably going to live at the end. Mission Impossible. I'm going to guess that Tom Cruise is going to do something crazy, but still live at the end with that character. Same here, but some of those surprises, that was a surprise for me, or at least I wasn't sure where they were going. I was almost thinking that we were kind of nearing the end of the film, and thinking, "Wow, this seems odd. I feel like there should be more here," and then there was. But I loved, Ryan Coogler, who was an Oakland native. I loved how he utilized that, and especially with Killmonger's story, and that scene between him, Michael B. Jordan, and his father, and like how it intercut between him as a child and him as a grown up, like that's just great filmmaking in a comic book movie. And to take the time and do something like that, eating the artifice of the world of Black Panther to get something really personal like that was great. And again, it made a story that much more enjoyable and that much more impactful. So there was just a lot of bits. Love the soundtrack too, and how it would use a lot of more hip hop when Killmonger was on screen compared to more orchestral when T'Challa was the main focus. But yeah, go out and see it. Curious what people think of it in general. Geekcast Radio fans, if you liked it, didn't like it, especially if you didn't like it, I'd like to hear, outside of the crazy people who just like to cause trouble, but if someone had major issues with it, like what those issues were, because I'm sure there are there, but it worked for me tremendously well, and it's just like it got me super excited to what's coming. I'm glad it didn't touch upon Infinity Stones. I do think there are some hints to them though, like that flower. I'm almost positive what powers that flower might be the Soul Gem, because that would explain how it lets them get into this kind of other universe to see their past ancestors. The character of Black Panther very much utilizes souls as a big part of that character's history. So I think like that makes a lot of sense, and we know based upon the trailers and of the new Avengers film that Wakanda is at least a focal point within that movie. So it would make sense if that Soul Gem is utilized someplace. So that's just my hunch. We've seen that happen in past Avengers films where Loki's staff also was Infinity Gem, and how that all comes to play. But I'm glad this was Black Panther's movie first and foremost. Well, I really it's Wakanda's movie. And how it really built that up. So a lot of rambling there, but pretty much my general overall opinion about Black Panther. I'm going to try to do some more of these coming up here and there. I do also want to talk about that. The Comic Concierge podcast just dropped today, the first episode with Tim Costa from First Time Watchers. You can go ahead and watch that. It's on the website, or download on iTunes, leave a review if you want. That'd be great. It's free. It's helpful. Share it if you like it. Give us feedback if you don't like it. What don't you like about it? It's in its early stages, so there's a lot of things we can change. But hope is kind of to talk about people that are not necessarily comic book fans and get their thoughts about comics and what their viewpoint is beforehand and what reading one actually is like. So Tim is a big movie fan, as he's part of the First Time Watchers podcast. So it gives you kind of a cinematic look at how movies like Black Panther have impacted what people think about comics, and the good and the bad, and that comes with that. So I think it'll be a fun little experiment here and there. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a happy President's Day, I guess. Enjoy the day off if you have it. But till next time, check you later.